Okay, today in Math 10C, we're looking at topic 6.2, the slope of parallel and perpendicular lines. In the first picture, you'll notice that these two lines are parallel. If you continued them on forever, they would never meet. Notice the slopes of these two lines. They're exactly the same. The slope of EF is negative 1 over 2. The slope of GH is negative 1 over 2. Here we have two perpendicular lines. Now, perpendicular lines are going to meet at a 90-degree angle. Their two slopes are going to be what we call negative reciprocals of each other. If one slope is negative 1 over 3, the other one is going to be positive 3 over 1. The thing that we're going to notice is that if you take the two slopes of perpendicular lines and multiply them together, you will get a product of negative 1. So let's look at an example. Let's identify parallel lines. Line GH passes through negative 4, 2 and 2, negative 1. JK passes through negative 1, 7 and 7, 3. And then line MN passes through negative 4, 5 and positive 3, 1. Positive 5, 1, sorry. Let's sketch these lines, and are they parallel? Well, we're going to sketch them after we calculate them. First of all, let's look at the slope of GH. If I used my change in y, that would be negative 1 minus 2 over 2 minus negative 4, which is negative 3 over 6, which is negative 1 over 2. The slope of our other line, JK, I can get that one now by going 3 minus 7 over 7 minus negative 1. And that'll be negative 4 over 8, which also reduces to negative 1 over 2. So these two lines have the same slope, they're parallel. Let's look at the last line, MN. Well, this time I'm going to go y2 minus y1, which is 1 minus 5, which is negative 4, over 5 minus negative 4, which is 9. Well, this one's different. So I can say that the first two are parallel, the second one is not parallel. Here's a picture of our three lines. If we notice, the first line has a slope of negative 4 over 8. The second one has a slope of negative 4 over 8. The third one has a slope of negative 4 over 9. So they're very close to being parallel, but you have to calculate them to be exact. Do the check your understanding number 1 before you move on to part 2. So in summary then, the slopes of perpendicular lines, two oblique perpendicular lines, are negative reciprocals when the slope of the first line, we say is A, is perpendicular to a line with a slope negative 1 over A. Example 2. Examining slopes to compare lines. Line PQ through negative 7, 2 and negative 2, 10. Line RS passes through negative 3, negative 4 and 5, 1. Are these two lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Justify your answer. And then we can sketch the lines to verify. Well, what we're going to do is first of all say that the slope of PQ, if I go y2 minus y1, I'll get 10 minus 2 over negative 2 minus negative 7. Well, that's 8, of course. Negative 2 minus negative 7 would be negative 2 plus positive 7, and that would be 5. Let's figure out the other line, RS, and I'm going to have 1 minus negative 4 over 5 minus negative 3, and that'll be 5 over 8. Well, these two lines are slopes are reciprocals, but they're not negative reciprocals. Therefore, they are not going to be parallel or perpendicular. If we sketch them, this is what they're going to look like, and you can easily see that they're not perpendicular or parallel. There's question number 2. Work on that before you move on to the next part. Here's example 3. Identifying a line perpendicular to a given line. Determine the slope of a line that's perpendicular to a line through 2, 3 and -4, -1. Well, first of all, let's figure out the slope. The slope of EF has got to be -1 minus 3, which is -4, over -4 minus 2, which is 6, -6. So that'll reduce to 2 over 3. That means the slope of a perpendicular line is going to have to be the negative reciprocal of 2 over 3, so that would be the negative of 3 over 2. So the slope of the line perpendicular to EF is -3 over 2. Part B. Determine the coordinates of G so that the line EG is perpendicular to EF. Well, we know that the slope of EG is going to have to be -3 over 2, and we know that E is at the point 2, 3. G we don't know, so I'm just going to call it xy. We have to solve for x and solve for y. We can say now that the slope, m, is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which is -3 over 2, has to equal, if we went and used our y2 minus y1, we can say y minus 3 over x minus 2. Now the top is going to be, well, we know that y minus 3 has to equal -3, so there's my equation. Y minus 3 is equal to -3. If I add 3 to both sides, I get my y is equal to 0. So my y coordinate will be 0. My x, the bottom, is now x minus 2 has to equal 2. There's my second equation. Add 2 to both sides, and I have x is equal to 4. So there's my xy, which is point G, 4, 0. On a picture, you can see that. Now, if we did this by just drawing it instead, we could start with E, and we know that the slope has to be -3 over 2, so from point E, we could count 3 points down, 2 points over, and we could also have found the point 4, 0. It's probably a lot easier to draw it in the first place, but sometimes it's a lot more work. Number 3, check your understanding. Please complete this question before moving on. Number 4, using slope to identify a polygon. ABCD is a parallelogram. Is it a rectangle? And justify your answer. Well, because it's a parallelogram, we know, first of all, that AD, the line segment A to D, has to be parallel to BC. That's how we will express that using abbreviations. AD is a parallel to BC. We also know that AB is parallel to DC. What we have to test for is to see if AD and AB are perpendicular. And that's the abbreviation for perpendicular. Now, to do that, we need the slopes of these two. The slope of AD is going to be, well, what are the coordinates? There they are, 4, 4 and -4, 2. So I can say 4 minus 2 as y2 minus y1 over 4 minus -4, x2 minus x1. That's going to leave me with 2 over 8, which is 1 over 4. So the slope of AD is 1 over 4. Let's check the slope of AB. This time, B is the coordinates -3, -2. So -2 minus +2 is -4, as it's already showing you there. And -3 minus -4 is going to be 1. So as you can see, 1 over 4 and -4 over 1 are negative reciprocals of each other. Therefore, this parallelogram is also going to be a rectangle. Here's your last check your understanding to work on before I move on and do your assignment, which is page 349, numbers 3 to 20.